The 65, Part 3, Paragraph 9. And like I said in the previous video, this is to honor University of Oklahoma, whose campus I am around, I benefit from. I enjoy being around here, using the library, being around the community, attending events, being around people from all around the world, most importantly. So let me start reading. Would it have been an improvement of the plan to have united the Supreme Court with the Senate in the formation of the Court of Impeachments? So in the previous part, we decided that, or Hamilton said that it's not a good idea to give this trial into the hands of the Supreme Court. And he has suggested that the Senate would be a good place for trial. But he says, would it be good to combine the Supreme Court and the Senate in this trial? And he's going to say, no, it won't. This union would certainly have been attended with several advantages. Would they not have been overbalanced by the signal disadvantage already stated arising from the agency of the same judges in the double prosecution to which the offender would be liable? To a certain extent, the benefits of that union will be obtained from making the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court the President of the Court of Impeachments, as is supposed to be done in the plan of the Convention. While the inconveniences of an entire incorporation of the former into the latter will be substantially avoided. This was perhaps the prudent mean. I forbear to remark upon the additional pretext for clamor against the judiciary which so considerable an augmentation of its authority would have afforded. Would it have been desirable to have composed the court for the trial of impeachments of persons wholly distinct from the other departments of the government? There are weighty arguments as well against as in favor of such a plan. So here he's saying, would it have been better if he'd created a new panel, a new subdivision to just strictly for trial of impeachments? And he's going to say it's going to take a lot of personnel, it's going to take money, it's more money, and it's just going to be an inconvenience in the whole scheme of things. There are weighty arguments as well against as in favor of such a plan. To some minds, it will not appear a trivial objection that it would tend to increase the complexity of the political machine and to add a new spring to the government, the utility of which would at best be questionable. But an objection which will not be thought by any unworthy of attention is this: a court formed upon such a plan would either be attended with heavy expense or might in practice be subject to a variety of casualties and inconveniences. It must either consist of permanent officers stationary at the seat of government and of course entitled to fixed and regular stipends, that's payments, money, wages, or salaries, or of certain officers of the state governments to be called upon whenever an impeachment was actually depending. It will not be easy to imagine any third mode materially different which could rationally be proposed, as the court, for reasons already given, ought to be numerous. The first scheme will be reprobated by every man who can compare the extent of the public wants with the means of supplying them. The second will be espoused with caution by those who will seriously consider the difficulty of collecting men dispersed over the whole Union. the injury to the innocent from the procrastinated determination of the charges which might be brought against them, the advantage to the guilty from the opportunities which delay would afford to intrigue and corruption, and in some cases, the detriment to the state from the prolonged inaction of men, whose firm and faithful execution of their duty might have exposed them to the persecution of an intemperate or designing majority in the House of Representatives. Though this latter supposition may seem harsh and might not be likely often to be verified, yet it ought not to be forgotten that the demon of faction will at certain seasons extend his scepter over all numerous bodies of men. So he's saying, I'm sorry, I'm being a little harsh about human nature, about what can happen in large assemblies. Human passion will take over. But we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to find a way that the impeachment process will take place right, in a right fashion, and the best way is the way we have recommended. And the very last paragraph says, another time, he's mentioned it here and there, but he again says that this is not a perfect constitution, we know it. But for us to come together and to unite, we had to come up with something that was a compromise for a lot of the people that were from different states. So that's why the people who want something that's perfect are asking for something that never was and never will be. Okay, I'll read the last paragraph. But though one or the other of the substitutes which have been examined, or some other that might be devised, should be thought preferable to the plan in this respect, reported by the Convention, it will not follow that the Constitution ought for this reason to be rejected. If mankind were to resolve to agree in no institution of government until every part of it had been adjusted to the most exact standard of perfection, society would soon become a general scene of anarchy. If we wait that long to have a perfect constitution, we'll have anarchy on our hands, and the world a desert. Where is the standard of perfection to be found? Who will undertake to unite the discordant opinions of a whole community in the same judgment of it, and to prevail upon one conceited projector to renounce his infallible criterion for the fallible criterion of his more considered neighbor? To answer the purpose of the adversaries of the Constitution, they ought to prove not merely that particular provisions in it are not the best, which might have been imagined, but that the plan upon the whole is bad and pernicious. Don't just stick to one part of it and say this part is bad. We challenge you to come up with a better constitution for this vast land. Right now, 13 states with different interests, different cultural outlooks. So this is the best we could do.